People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you never get that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello once again, and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook, and each week we sit down here and talk about getting financially healthy and financially prepared for retirement. So today we're going to start with an interview that Charisse did just recently. She sat down with another very interesting person that I think we can all learn something from in all different aspects of our lives. His name is Matt Walker, and here's Charisse with Matt.
We have a guest speaker who drove all the way to Ocala to do this radio interview. And the people who should be listening, and I think that's everybody, but if you are a CEO, entrepreneur, world changer, speaker, you're leading the pack somewhere, you could be 30 years old, you could be 50 years old, and you're in a rut and you're looking to move forward. You're going to enjoy the next 15 minutes. And let me introduce Matt Walker, who drove all the way from John Maxwell's headquarters in Florida.
That's right. Thanks, Charisse. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Entrepreneur, visionary, and part of the leadership team over there at John Maxwell. I've learned a lot about you. And I would like to kind of introduce you in a form where I would love you to tell us your story, because you have come through some serious adversity. You had hopes and dreams like we all did, and you just stayed truthful and you followed your journey and you wore your God goggles and you're here today. And this is a very cool story. And can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Charisse. So I grew up with wonderful parents and always had a big dream to do big things. The old question of what do you want to be when you grow up? And that's a hard question to answer when you think sky's the limit. So I decided to be an athlete one day. And went on to play football and actually got to go play professional football in Canada as a Canadian football player up there. And then, as happens oftentimes, is that your career comes short due to injury. And, once that happened, I think for me, it was just that realization of what now? Do I just go back to college and finish some things, or what do I do now? And I just felt like there was something bigger in life, and somebody put in my hands the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And I read that book and it just hit my heart in a very special way. It hit my mind that, you can grow physically, football and being a pro athlete have a lot to do with your mentality, but just seeing it as a possible career to make a difference for the whole world. In that, as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Mm-hmm. So having the opportunity to go through that book and look into personal growth, and that really just lit my heart on fire and started our journey as being entrepreneurs. But as we continue to go along, I mean, there's adversity that all of us face. And oftentimes you feel like you're pushing an 800-pound boulder uphill. You can't see on the other side of it. The boulder's too big. But you just know you're pushing it. And when you first start, you're excited about it. But over time, you go through challenges.
It gets heavier.
it gets heavier because you start to maybe lose perspective. And, you get the well wishes from people around you that say good for you, but they don't understand what it's like to push a boulder like that. And so just getting around the Maxwell Leadership Organization and having an opportunity to grow with them and, get perspective of other people that are pushing that boulder has really been a incredible change. So very, very exciting to be around the Maxwell Leadership Organization. I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're honored you're here. We love John Maxwell. We have a bunch of John Maxwell leaders here in North and Central Florida, but across the country, because people are listening across the country, and you're going to hit hearts today one way or another. I always say one person at a time. And you made a comment, and as I'm actually, just so you all full disclosure know, I'm part of the leadership program mentor leadership program, the high capacity leadership program. And so I'm really excited about it and taking this deep dive because, being an entrepreneur, Zinnia Wealth Management, I also own the Grilled Cheese Foundation. There's things that I have to continue to learn as a leader to inspire and add value to people. And because I think that's a lost art, actually. And people are striving to do so. And I want to continue to do that and add that value. The show is about financial planning and retiring and how do we do that. And I loved our conversation because you made a fun comment about emotion and money. I'm like, oh, this is great. Let's talk more about it.
That's right. Yeah, because in our belief, finances they're an outcome. They're not a root cause. And so leadership has everything to do with influence. As John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And the hardest person in the world to lead is yourself. And ultimately, when you're developing your financial IQ and your financial practices, financials are so much emotional. And that's why you have to tackle the emotions through your own leadership. But then money is multiplied through your ability to add value to the marketplace and add value to people. So if you're struggling with, I want to have more money, it's possible that a lot of that could do with leadership limits that you're currently facing and developing your leadership in how to add value to others and build your tribe. As I love what you say, build your wolf pack.
Yes, I do have a saying.
and be able to do that. I believe the more people you touch, the more finances you make. So leadership, I believe, is, and as does John, directly impacts how your finances will look.
Yeah. So he brought up wolf pack. I'm always looking for my wolf pack. And anybody out there, who wants to implore and be challenged to, join this high capacity mentorship, I'm going to be part of it. I just heard Tim Tebow is going to be part of it. So many other things out there. John Maxwell is going to get a little intimate and be part of it, of course. Finances can be very emotional. Markets are going up and down, elections, interest rate changes, all the noise out there. And that's our job here, to keep everyone's emotions grounded so we don't make bad decisions. So I love what John Maxwell has to say about finance and staying the course and really understanding your plan. When we're done with this interview, we're going to talk about finances and how it kind of follows this conversation. But, we're looking for world changers. Now, we talked about something I truly, dear to my heart, believe in, is I feel like John Maxwell's strategy and how he coaches, and he does it in such an amazing manner. It is a lost art, and we don't see as much of it. And you told me a story about he's getting older and he wants now to do deep dives and coach people faster, harder, because you can't live forever, right? So
he might. He might, Sharice, yeah.
God wants him here longer than he thinks, maybe.
Possibly, yeah.
So can you delve into that, like the whole behind the scenes on that?
Sure. So one of my great friends and one of the leaders in the Maxwell organization, his name is Chad Johnson. He's actually going to be the host of High Capacity Leadership, which is our year-long mentorship program. And him and John were having a heart-to-heart discussion about the fact that, John is 77, and these next 3 years, the primary goal that John wants to focus on is up-and-coming leaders that are, like you said at the beginning, just need that extra bit of edge, that extra inspiration, but most importantly, the depth of wisdom. And I think that's one of the lost arts, like you say, is having somebody that is wise look at John Maxwell as an example, pouring into that up-and-coming leader. And you could be 50, you could be 60, you could be 70 and still have wisdom poured into you. And so John's focus primarily is to give his time, the most valuable resource we have as people. It's not money, it's time. Mm-hmm. John's giving his time to you at High Capacity Leadership. He's giving that time to ask him any questions that you may have and for him to speak into the wisdom and the experiences that he's had on how to deal with relationships, how to deal with the challenges that you're facing as a leader, how to inspire you and keep you alive and well, because I know there's something called burnout that a lot of leaders face because there's tides of things. When you're pouring out all the time, if you're not being poured into as a leader, you're redlining. And so this is an opportunity to be poured into as that leader.
I love that. I think all those words are incredibly valuable. And I know some people who are listening are saying, oh, that's me, and the importance of it. There's a quote out there I love from Benjamin Franklin that says, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And it comes with habits, and it comes with your wolf pack, and just creating these new habits. And so my new habit is going outside my box and getting around my community and rubbing shoulders with people that have been here and done that, right? And every day I listen to podcasts, and just like you do, we were talking about it this morning. I did my 4 a.m. club thing, and I'm like, time to wake up. Got your coffee. I already prayed. I did my pause app. I meditated, and I got my workout in. And then like 2 hours later, he's like, I already got mine in too.
It was encouraging, by the way, to get that text. I was like, I got to be on my game because I know Charisse is in town. So
yes. The goal here is to tell people, inspire others, lead others. It doesn't matter what department you're in and what you're doing. You could be a chief operation officers, our director of operation. You could be leading the wolf pack at, the fire station or the police station.
That's right.
Duke Electric. It doesn't matter. But if you are that person that likes to take initiative and rise above, and you're just needing a little bit more help, a little bit of push, this is incredible. And I'm excited to be part of it. And can you tell people before we go to a close here, how did you get into this John Maxwell relationship and being one of the leaders there? And because you talked about Chad Johnson, and you got to tell the story. I thought it was incredible because what a coinky dink, you just landed there.
Yeah, I like what you did there, by the way. That was great. Yeah, so after reading that book, I did become an entrepreneur and get a chance to get around as many seminars as I could. I kind of chased after John Maxwell and podcasts and books and everything else. And so over the years, I got to meet a lot of the leadership, Mark Cole, a lot of the incredible leaders that are behind the scenes. And there really is, Charisse. The Maxwell leadership has done such a great job of finding and empowering great leaders throughout the entire company from top to bottom. And so I also really value getting out of my home and bumping shoulders. It's a very, very important pastime of mine is networking and meeting people. And so I went out to Black Dog Cigar in Stuart, Florida. And there's a gentleman there. Him and I were having a great conversation. And I said, so Chris, and his name was Chris Robinson. I said, so Chris, I love leadership. Have you ever heard of John Maxwell or read any books? And so they start laughing. And not Chris, he was really kind. But, the owners of the place were saying, well, do you know who you're talking to? And I was just like, what am I missing here, guys? Because it's very obvious that I missed something. And Chris humbly just says, I'm actually one of the leadership in Maxwell, one of the VPs. And so I just said, oh my gosh, that's so funny. But he's been so graceful. And we built a really great relationship as well, too, over that time. And, I'm a big believer in leadership as influence and making a difference, adding value. So I just started, texting them and connecting with them just on how I can serve, how I can help. Do you need me to get your dry cleaning? Do you need me to take something out for whatever you need to do? Because to me, going out to help people is really where you can start to build a connection, a relationship with them. And so Chris never did have me do anything. He always said, I'm fine. And he was so gracious. But we built a great friendship. And Chris Robinson is an incredible leader. Yes. You'll be able to find him, all over the world. And so he sent me a message and just said, hey, we'd like to maybe connect about some Maxwell specific stuff. And that's how I got the door to start meeting Chris Godey and Chad Johnson and John Maxwell and all these incredible leaders. And here we are today.
Yeah, because you're an entrepreneur and you ran your own business and leading companies. And I think you do like 100 a year, if I recall. And that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so we're here to inspire, add value, and anybody who wants to ride this train with us and follow us through this journey, we'd be so excited for you all to be part of this journey. I feel blessed that you came today, Matt, and drove here just for this interview, because we're always trying to help and save lives and do it financially and coach up, health wise. I mean, health and wealth is huge, and mental stability, mind, body, and spirit. I just believe in all those things. And this is just one of the steps to all those amazing habits you start to create, right?
That's right.
So how do people get a hold of you to learn about this high capacity mentorship program with John Maxwell?
Yeah, so there's 2 programs. In fact, there's probably much more than that. So we want to add value to you. The easiest way is just go to our website, exchange.maxwellleadership.com. And that is 3 L's. So just in case you're wondering, exchange.maxwellleadership.com, and just hit the contact us button. That'll all go directly to me, and I can help organize and sort through a conversation, because truthfully, I'd love to get to know you too. I'd love to get to know who you are, what you might be struggling, what you might be facing as a leader, and really make sure that we partner with you on the best possible journey, just like we did together, you and I, Charisse, which Charisse and I had a 2-hour conversation. And I just left our conversation feeling so great about just future and just her potential and where she's going. So I know as listeners, you guys get to hear her all the time, and that's an incredible thing. So just reach out to us, exchange.maxwellleadership.com, and hit the contact us button. That'll go directly to me, and we'll schedule a call.
Fantastic. Well, we talk about holistic financial planning, which we're about to dive into, but it's also holistic in mind, body, and spirit, because there's a lot of channels when you're working on the holistic life and your health and the mind, body, and spirit and the value of all those things. So stay tuned as we talk about holistic planning. And Matt, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you, and we will certainly have you back.
Thank you so much, Therese.
Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, you can find us at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And Sharice, just talking about Matt Walker and talking about the idea of sitting down and building a full, comprehensive retirement plan. You used the word holistic, and then to me that kind of means all-encompassing, kind of an umbrella over the whole kind of thing. So what would you say, bullet point by bullet point, is involved in a holistic plan? What do we need to cover?
One of the key steps, number one, first and foremost, as we're getting to know you, is really assessing your financial health. We always say on radio, take inventory. So what are your liabilities, your assets, your income? Understanding that financial baseline is crucial to setting a realistic goal in the future, especially if you're going to live 30 or 40 years in retirement. Mm-hmm. The second one says set retirement goals. So this is when I talk about the spending plan, Randy. How much are we going to spend? And a lot of people are like, I don't know, Sharice. We want to determine, what you want in retirement. What does retirement look like after the 401k, right? And you're ready to retire. Does this include a lifestyle preference or travel plans that is going on cruises or flying to New Zealand or just hanging out in the backyard and creating a garden? What are your hobbies? Is there going to be any charitable work? So we need to consider that so that the income is there to support that goal. The third one, this is very, very important in our office, is creating a budget. So let's say you have to pay for gas at the pump, and you have to pay your light bill, and you want to still continue to buy those organic eggs at Publix that might cost you $20 here for a dozen in 20 years, right?
Okay.
So we want to really develop a budget so that you don't have to shop on discount in the future. So we're creating income plans, and your bills are inflated every year. We want inflation protection built into our income plans. And we want to consider your recreation. What are you going to be doing? So there's a lot of pieces and parts that go into this budget because you're go-go years. So let's be okay spending some money, but let's build it into a plan, see how much we can push that envelope and spend a little bit more if you wanted to. In case you said, Sharice, I'm not sure that I can do that. Well, this is why we're building the income plans out. We'll show you. And it's either going to be yay or nay, but I've never said nay to anybody so far. So far, so good. The fourth step is maximizing your retirement savings. How do you do that? I mean, there's a lot of ways. I mean, you've already started out strong. You've contributed to your 401ks and IRAs. You saved all of this money. But do you know that there's some investments out there to maximize those dollars you saved that give you a bigger bang for your buck than other investments? So you might be retiring and your employer says, hey, we're going to give you a lump sum, or you can just take an income check, a pension for the rest of your life. And now you got to make those decisions. And we have a math equation that goes into that. But sometimes that pension for life is the better value. That's a bigger bang for your buck. And now you don't have to be a pension manager when you're retired, but sometimes they don't give you enough and it's not worth it. So you can go outside in the private world and you can get annuities. You can do other fixed income types income stream that give you more income than you could from taking a withdrawal just from an investment. Do we sprinkle those things in? And Social Security, when do we take Social Security? There's actually a Social Security strategy. There is wrong times to collect, right times to collect. There's right in the middle times to collect, right? And then you got to live long enough. So those conversations are part of the holistic plan and that approach that we provide in our office. The fifth one is your healthcare. Healthcare, you guys, can be costly. They say the average couple could easily pay $285,000 on their healthcare, Randy. That is a big chunk of money. So where is that chunk of money going to come from? So when we start going down this line, you're going to notice, okay, we figured out your income plan. Now we have to worry about your healthcare plan. So we know what your income plan is, and we're going to know kind of your investment plan at that point. And then we're going to be able to figure out, hey, in 30 years, based on your income plan, you can just write a check if you wanted to. You don't have to buy a long-term care policy. You might be somebody that's like, no, my kids are going to take care of me. Some of you might say, no, I want to buy a long-term care insurance policy, Sheree. So there's so many options, but part of that holistic plan is knowing what are the options ahead of time for the one day if I need a long-term care plan in the future. Number 6 is evaluating your housing needs. I can't tell you how many people I sit with, and some of them are in their late 60s and they're about to upsize their house, and some of them are about to downsize their house. So upsize, we want one more chance to get the house of our dreams. And every time I've seen that, by the way, within 5 years, they're ready to sell and get out of it because the upsize of a house costs more money. And as we get older, we start to see health issues take place a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of the times. And all of a sudden you're ready to downsize. So you really need to decide, are we staying where we're living? Are we going to move to another city? Like, is this our retirement zone where we're going to live forever? And what is that plan? So that all those extra costs don't arise. But I'm going to be honest with you. Somebody just came in a couple weeks ago and they said, Sharice, we decided to sell both of our rentals. And the reason why we decided to do that, because Mr. said, no, let's do 1031. Let's keep the rental income. I love it. It's passive income. We get some write-offs. And she's like, but if something happens to you, my dear, I don't want to be in charge of renting these homes. So let's make life easy, consolidate, and then take the cash and we can get income from another source. And so they sold. And he said, we bit the bullet and we just paid the tax bill. So those conversations need to happen sooner or later. Number 7, establishing a social network. So once you walk out the double doors of where you work, you collect your very last paycheck. And now you're not talking to anybody at work. Nobody's coming to you, asking you questions, and you're not going to them. All of a sudden you're on your own. And the next day you're just like, am I supposed to go to work? And you have to get used to this new way of life of, hey, am I going to volunteer? Am I going to go plant in the garden? Am I doing my honey-do list? There's a lot of emotions that are involved. This is an emotional decision to retire, number 1, especially when you're so needed at work and now you're getting ready to not be needed as much. So I've talked to many people and there's like, yeah, it's one of the hardest things to adjust to, Sheree. Some people just can't. Sometimes they just do part-time work or they just focus really on a lot of charity work. So creating a strong support system to provide emotional support to reduce, feeling of isolation, especially. So that's number 7. Number 8, and really the one that people miss the most, legacy and estate planning. Ensuring that your estate is in order. That means having a will, having a trust potentially, power of attorneys, your beneficiaries, who's going to get your money, how much do they get? Do they deserve it? Are they going to get it tax-free or is it going to be all taxable to them? Making those decisions ahead of time and putting it on paper is key. So that's one of the big steps. We definitely want to make sure in that holistic plan you do not bypass because sure makes things a lot easier when your kids or your beneficiaries aren't having to go through probate and giving all that money back that goes into that state into probate to attorneys. They get a big chunk of money, which is well-deserved. But again, getting everything buttoned up is going to be key. Last and not least, review your plan regularly. How many are reviewing your plan regularly? Your retirement plan. Every year you should be looking at your risk tolerance. Does it change? Your tax plan. Are we rolling IRAs to a Roth? Are we putting money in a donor advisor fund? What are we doing every year? You got to have that sit down and conversation with your advisors because all of a sudden you might say, hey, I want to go on more trips. I want to spend more money. You need to have that conversation and put it into the plan that was once created and make sure it's doable so you don't have to worry about running out of money in the future. Maybe you're helping a family member. You're like, I need $100,000. I personally just had 2 clients. I don't even think they're neighbors. They both asked for $120,000 for new pools, like literally within the same week. I couldn't believe it. And one of the plans I said, oh, that's going to tighten some things up here. And the other one, it was fine, but we rebuilt their income plan and we had to go back through their tax plan because now we had Medicare and ugly Irma, extra costs for Medicare A and B and D, and just the tax bill. So we had to go through that and try to make it as tax efficient as possible. So remember, holistic planning, it's not a one step, it's not cookie cutter. Everybody's households and homes are going to be so different. And we're happy to provide that service because it's important. I don't know how anybody creates plans without going down this path with people, because every step of the way, all these things are important. And honestly, if you miss one thing, it could create a domino effect of problems. So we want to try to catch it before they do happen.
Well, this is a great list, and I was writing as fast as I possibly could, but this is why we have our podcast. So make sure you go to our podcast on iTunes, on Apple, on Spotify, and wherever your podcast provider is, and you can go through these 9 steps that Charisse has, and you can do your own checklist there. I wonder if you have all of them checked off. If you don't, give us a call. Give us a look on our website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, or give us a call, 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680, and we'll sit down and go through the list together at our complimentary retirement consultation. We're going to take a break and come right back with more Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, of course, at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box down in the bottom right-hand corner you'll find, and it says Complimentary Retirement Consultation. If it's time to talk about your retirement, we are here. We would love to have that conversation with you. Of course, that is at no charge. Again, zinniawealth.com, or give us a call, 833-368-3680. Okay, over the next coming weeks, now that we're moving our way into October, we're going to be talking a little bit about elections. We've got some local people that we're going to have, and the mayor on the line. We're going to talk about the 1% sales tax, things like that locally. But of course, nationally, we've got 2 candidates that are going at it, and they're talking about policy now, talking about taxes, talking about what they would do with the economy, talking about what they would do with Social Security. And we all know that when President Trump was in office, he put in the Trump tax cuts. Well, those are set to expire on December 31st of next year. We've been talking about this for quite a while. So now we're actually in a place where maybe we need to start making some preparations for that if we need to do anything at all. This is Judy Brown. She is on Yahoo Finance talking about that idea.
The one that's going to really affect most people, are all the tax brackets shifting. Like the top tax rate is going to go from 37 to 39.6%. The standard deduction is going to go in half. So people that weren't itemizing might be now. So that's when we're going to really see a lot of tax planning that will be very valuable.
Okay, so there's a lot there to unpack, Charisse. Talk to me about this. I know that this is next year. The window will close next year on December 31st. But what are you talking to your clients about when it comes to this?
So what is wise financial counsel these days, Randy? And I think that's a hard question to answer. I think for the pre-retiree and the retiree, and anybody getting ready for this day, I call it January 1st, 2026, advisors who actually understand your tax worries and your next planning steps to hopefully help outpace or beat Uncle Sam in the future is probably who you want to seek, because there's advisors out there that don't understand taxes. And our entire team is fully integrated in tax planning, and we have amazing tax software. And she's saying here, hey, you need wise financial stewardship when it comes to this next phase that we're going to embark in. And let me give you a little history. The TCJA, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that took place 2017 to 2019. Well, it was the first time in 2017 when the Democrats and the Republicans actually agreed to something. As long as over the following 10 years, it didn't cost them more than $1.5 trillion, and it cost them zero thereafter. And so part of that deal, like you said, Randy, is your standard deductions are going to half, right? If your standard deduction is $33,000 or $29,200, if you're under 65 years old, think about that, half. And then the tax brackets are going up. So 12 to 14, 22 to 24, et cetera. And so what does that mean for the average retiree? Well, you might be going back to itemizing. And I know the retirees out there were so happy, and pre-retirees were so happy not to have to itemize, Randy, because it's a thorn, right? It's a lot of work. And you really had to beat the numbers to hit a certain level, and the standard deduction was so high, it was really the better strategy for most people. So at the end of the day, it means that you're going to have to pay more in taxes. And one of the other parts, I don't think a lot of people know that your advisor fees, your accountant's fees, your CPAs, if you're an individual person and you're not an employer or you don't own a business, you can't write those things off. So one positive note, you might get one of those above the line items that you get to write off next year. But if you take the standard deduction in 2026, you still can't write those off. So you do have to itemize them. So let's talk about 2026 and what does that mean for you? The average person is going to be paying close to $2,000 to $4,000 more in taxes. And this is the first tax shuffle that we're going to see. Let me ask the listeners, what do you think is the next step? Do you think the taxes are going to keep going up from there? If we have $40 trillion in debt in the next 3 years, right? And the answer is yes. And there's only a couple ways to pay this debt off. And that is the government has to stop spending money, right? Or at least lower their spending habits, which is not going to happen, and or raise revenue. And the way to raise revenue is taxes going up. We are in the lowest marginal tax bracket we've ever seen. And so, something's got to give, and it's going to be a pain point probably for the next 10, maybe 20 years. Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. So what are you going to do? Who are you working with? And you might have accountants and CPAs, but they do the bookkeeping. They're not doing tax strategies. The CPAs come to us saying, I love what you're doing. And they're like, can we have that? So a lot of our clients that we work with their CPAs, and we'll just say, hey, do you want our stuff? Are you already doing it? They're like, no, please. Thank you, ma'am. We'll take your stuff. Because it's just directing traffic on all the tax strategies and all the different things you can implement that most people don't know and don't delve into. And I was just speaking to somebody, Randy, about taxes, and they said, well, if my spouse goes into a nursing home, I'll use all the IRA money and I'll be able to write all that IRA money off. So I'm not going to do anything with the IRA. I'm going to let it sit. And what I had to explain is that you cannot write all that money off. You get to write 7.5% of whatever your adjusted gross income is. So for example, if you had a $50,000 income, Randy, and you paid $20,000 for home health care or nursing homes this year, well, you're still only going to be able to write off 7.5% of your $50,000 adjusted gross income, which is $3,750. So I don't think people really understand the rules and how they work. So a lot of tax strategies are going to be changing. And I will tell you this much. I am a little worried about taxes in the future. I am worried about the average individual out there, Randy. And there's a lot of politicians out there trying to fight for the average American. And there's a lot of politicians out there that are not, that are more selfish. And the average individual out there, their costs of goods have gone up from $1,000 to $12,000 on an annual basis. And most people have run out of cash. They've overspent their credit cards. And now we're going to start seeing, more auto delinquencies. The math is starting to tip upside down here. So where those dollars come from at the end of the day is where I want to ask everyone. And if you are 55 and older and you are getting ready to retire, you have time to work with us to actually start prepping for that pre and post retirement tax strategy. And you need to do it now before 2026. So, don't let this train pass you by. Call us. We will help you with what you need, and we'll give you the direction that you need to at least try to help with your tax plan, because tax maximization strategies are going to be key, not just today, not just tomorrow, but for the next 20 years of your life.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Find us online, zinniawealth.com. And taxes are something, we say a retirement plan isn't a retirement plan unless it has a tax plan. And if you're not thinking about this, you're probably missing a lot of opportunities. So, Sharice, as I listen to all of that, I have two major questions for you.
Yes.
Number one. Many of us, as you have said, have not itemized over the last couple of years. And now all of a sudden we might be in that possibility. Say, for instance, one of the ways to get to that number is if you have a lot of medical bills. People who get into retirement, all of a sudden something happens and you've got a lot of medical bills. 1 year, it's $7,000 or $10,000 worth of medical bills. And all of a sudden you can now itemize. That means there's a whole world open to you of deductions that you haven't seen or taken advantage of or even maybe know about that you probably need to look into. That is something that I think that the conversation needs to be when they're in the office with you. Charisse, what's open to me? You talk about different fees I could deduct and things like that. Now that's open to me.
Yes. So there could be a strategy, which we call in our world, in the accounting and financial world, leapfrogging. So let's just say we're in 2026 and all of a sudden your deductions go sky high.
Okay.
Because somebody needs medical attention and it's costing you a lot of money. Maybe you donated that year. Maybe you have advisory fees that are super high. So it might make more sense that year to maximize the itemization strategy. And then the next year you go back to the standard deduction strategy if you don't have that much to itemize. And then if things happen again the following year, you can flip-flop whether you're going to do standard deduction or itemize. So that is something we can help you determine when we're helping you with your tax plan. And remember, I'm not a CPA. I'm not going to do your bookkeeping. Nobody here is CPAs. We have CPAs that can help you. What our strategies are for is to decide, hey, do we add money to a donor advised funds? Do we do QCDs with your IRAs so you don't pay taxes on those? Do we, focus on rolling IRAs to Roth and so much more? And that's the strategies that we're employing, and we're going to show it to you. And here's a beautiful thing, Randy. You're going to see two pictures. One picture is, what if you do nothing and you keep the standard deduction and you keep going down this tax road and you're 73 or 75 years old, you're having to pull these RMDs out of your IRAs and 401ks because you have a forced hand to do that by law. And then if you do nothing and you just ride this way, we're going to show you what's going to cost you in taxes, your surviving spouse in taxes, and what it's going to cost your kiddos and your family members when they inherit these accounts. Now, we're also going to show you a side-by-side look at what if we do something about it? What if we come in and we said, you know what, this looks like it's no fun, but I might be able to double my legacy. I might be able to take 50% of the full tax bill over the next 30 years away from my surviving spouse and my kiddos when they inherit my money. Then I'll take that option, right? So you get to choose. The problem is today, Randy, people have no clue. They hear this noise, they hear this fearmonger, they hear this guy says, don't do this. And it's very confusing. You cannot determine or make a decision based on all the noise. So come in and let us do the math. Let us show you. You can choose which route you want to take, right? Take a right, take a left. Go up the middle. We're going to show you a bunch of options. But the tax plan is really something we want to focus on and really, really hit it hard.
Yeah, our number is 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or our website, zinniawealth.com. So my second question about this, Charisse, you and I talk a lot about detaxing your money, moving it from a 401k or an IRA over to a Roth, and then paying the taxes a little bit at a time. One of the things that you pay attention to is how much should we convert so that we don't put you in the next tax bracket? Well, if you are in the middle of that procedure and say, I got a 5-year plan to do this, and then right in the middle of it, they change the tax brackets, you've got to pay attention to that, don't you?
You do. Surprise.
Yeah.
So there's these thresholds you have to pay attention to. And this is why when you're working with your financial advisors and your retirement planners, you sit with them every year, whether it's Zoom or it's a call or you come into their office, you make sure you have that physical contact one way or another. And you're talking about, okay, what's changed with the taxes? Any surprises? That plan needs to be adjusted as you go. And as these thresholds and tax changes take place over the years, you're going to want to make sure that you don't overfund and roll too much IRAs to Roth or contribute too much to Roth. There's these things called excise taxes and penalties that you don't want to have to deal with. So there's a lot of things to think about there. But if you're working on a tax plan, that is an every year plan. That is an every year adjustment and or conversation to make sure there's no surprises. So you're not hit with a double tax or you're not hit with net investment taxes, right? Or IRMA taxes. Remember, we have our Medicare IRMA, IRMMA taxes. I call that ugly IRMA because that's a pain point when you're rolling IRAs over to Roths also, Randy. And, your Medicare Part B, because you rolled too much from your IRA to a Roth, can go from $175 to $450, right? 2 years later. And it could be compounding if you continue to roll these IRAs to a Roth. So there's a math equation that comes into play when you're looking at that too.
So we are talking a lot and have been over the last couple of years about interest rates. Now the conversation is going to be about interest rates and about taxes because there's some changes that are coming. You got to keep up with these things. And I don't want you to think that all of this is that far off in the future. Yeah, this is the window on this one is January 1st, 2026. But we talk a lot about having that meeting about tax planning, tax loss harvesting, any kind of charitable deductions or charitable contributions that you want to do. All of that needs to be done before the end of this year. So let's have that meeting and let's not put it off to the first, 2 weeks of December. Let's make sure that we get that meeting before Thanksgiving. Let's get that thing done right now. Call Charisse. Let's get that meeting. Let's talk about taxes. Let's talk about next year and talk about many years to come. 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680 or ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. Click on that gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a strategy that Charisse has been ripping to shreds for the last couple of years, and now I see articles say, hey, this is coming back. Well, we'll get her opinion on that in just a moment, and we'll talk a little bit about those rates. The Fed is doing their thing. They're cutting rates. What does that mean for you? All of that coming up on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, ZinniaWealth.com. All right, we've talked a lot about this 60-40 portfolio here on the show. It's kind of a default. A lot of people use it in their 401ks. If stocks go up, fantastic. If stocks go down, you're going to be buoyed by the bonds. Well, the bonds over the last couple of years have not done well because as interest rates go up, bonds go down. The value of your bond goes down. Well, now interest rates are taking a turn. We're starting to see the Fed start to lower the rates and bonds will become more attractive. So I'm seeing articles now, Charisse, that says the 60-40 portfolio is back. Do you agree?
Well, I do for the short run, actually.
Okay.
But you didn't expect me to say that, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so here's my take. Interest rates. When interest rates go down, bond values historically go up. And remember in 2020, interest rates were going up and in bonds for 24 months thereafter lost an average of 15 to 20%, Randy. So now it's flip-flopped.
Yep.
But the Federal Reserve has got to be very careful because there's nothing worse than stagflation. Recessions are better, in my opinion, than something called stagflation. And I don't know if you guys remember this from the 80s and Carter and that time period. Stagflation is a serious pain point. And recessions, market goes down, it comes back up, we plow through it. If interest rates, Randy, go down too fast, and then all of a sudden they say, uh-oh, we got a problem, Houston, then they jump them back up. This is how stagflation happens. And in the 80s, this is exactly what happened. Exactly what we're going through right now, Randy, is what happened. And all of a sudden, they had to raise interest rates up 20% because of the huge and high inflationary period that we ended up going in after they were trying to fight it. So we got to be super careful. And the Federal Reserve, their goal is drop rates, start at 50 basis points. Wall Street wants 150 basis points interest rate drop. Whoa. And they want it by the end of the year. This is what Wall Street is hoping. And I think that would be amazing because that would, produce people in considering buying cars or buying homes and businesses growing and booming. But if it happens too fast, it could be a serious problem. And on top of that, with the debt we have and the GDP issues that we're having out there, I have a big concern. So I will tell you this. The 60-40 portfolio is going to look a little bit better. And I don't know if that's going to be for the long run or the short run. So what we did in our portfolios, Randy, right before the Federal Reserve started talking and saying, hey, we're going to cut the rates, This was 2 weeks ago. We went ahead and got rid of our treasuries and short-term safe bonds, and we went into more longer-term. This means that we should be able to make more money because when interest rates drop, those bonds will go up. So we made that move. This is part of our sector rotation and strategies that we do every month. And the question is that how long does that stay? And is there an inversion and it goes back to where we've been? Okay. I don't know. All I know is that for our clients, we're making these moves because the math says to make these moves. So we've already made the first big leap, and there'll be another big leap next month. And then I know for a fact that we'll have another big leap the month after, because things are changing and we're adapting to the change and we're moving through these cycles in our side of our portfolio. So a lot of our clients are super happy because the 60-40 portfolio for them, it should fare well. But the advisors that aren't making this leap are not changing their portfolios right now to potentially reap a better benefit in return. I do worry because back in 2022, big firms, I'm talking about the biggest custodians, biggest banks in the country, they did nothing. When interest rates started going up, they should have shifted gears and moved to these shorter term, lower duration type bonds and treasuries, 1 to 3 years, because those are the ones that were making more money and they didn't have as much volatility to no volatility. So I'm afraid they're going to sit on their hands and do nothing. And then 6 months or 12 months later, maybe shift. I don't know, but hopefully they act faster than they did last time. But we are fast to act and move when we know things are happening. So the 60-40 is looking good, and it's a way to make more money and take less risk. So for the short run, the cat's not out the bag yet. We'll find out here in the next 12 months where we land thereafter.
Well, many times on the show, we talk about these things are happening. How do we react? And as interest rates go up, you would want to be more short term with your investing. And that is what is the case. More than $3 trillion have poured into fixed income assets like CDs, like money markets, like bonds, like treasuries, like annuities over the last couple of months when the interest rate got up to about 5%. Well, now the rate is going down. So now what Charisse is doing and what you should be doing is looking at longer term. You know the rate is going down, so lock in the best one right now. So you talk about the balancing act of the Fed. It's rather interesting right now because if you were in the market to buy a house, and we know how important housing is. That is really the bedrock of our economy. If housing is going well, things are going well. But if you were buying a house right now, why wouldn't you sit around and wait until interest rates continue to go down so you could lock that in and have a lower mortgage payment? You know, if you know you're going to buy something, go to Amazon and find out when the next prime sale is. That's when you buy it. And that's what people are doing right now. The August home sales were down. People are seeing this. They know that the rates are going down, so they're waiting. So, Charisse, we don't need to wait as we sit down with you and say, okay, what is my strategy for fixed income? So some of these things we've been warning people and saying, hey, sooner or later, the tide's going to turn. So it's not going to go that fast. So there's still time. There's still a window open for this, isn't there?
One of my client reviews, Randy, this past week, she said, Charisse, I have 3 fears. My biggest fear is what to do with these CDs and this cash, because the cash isn't making much money now, but my CDs are doing great, but the interest rates are going to go down. Yeah. And I went, you fear that more than a recession? And she went, yes. And I went, what did you do in 2021 with your cash and your CDs? She's like, I invested them in cash and CDs. And I said, what did you make back then? 2%, maybe 2.5%. I said, so you're going to go back to that. That's what's going to happen. And they feared, because we've been very spoiled since summer of 2022 with these amazing interest rates. So I engaged her and said, why don't we get a 5-year fix at 5.3%? Then you're locking in that 5-year for 5 years, 5.3, 5.3, 5.3, 5.3. Yeah. She went, we can do that? I was like, yes, we can absolutely do that. And I said, and if you need cash from it, you can still pull, it's liquid. You can still pull, the interest every year, or you can pull 10% a year. And she went, really? I went, yes. So that really is going to be the next big wave. And we probably only have a couple more months for those 5 years. that you can lock in. And I think by December, we won't be able to still get them at that 5 and above. But if it's concerning, it's something you want to lock in for the next 5 years, because interest rates very well could stay down to, 2 and 3% over the next 5 years. If we don't have a second rip of inflation and then it gets, rears its ugly head, if it stays stable, but then we have a potential recession looming coming next summer. And if that happens, we'll probably want to keep rates down so people can stay invested and do things and maybe even spur the economy so people can get loans. So again, we are in a time period that is evolving and changing. And I always say what happened in the past might not happen in the future, but it will happen differently. And we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, and there's no guarantee in life, right? So I would recommend those people who are concerned to come in and see us sooner than later. We're super busy, and we are in Medicare season. We're in tax season, and we're looking to hire a couple more advisors out there that are interested, just to throw that out there. But we're busy. Come see us. Don't wait till December, please.
Taxes and rates and the election are going to be the big topics of conversation in all the meetings. And if these are things that you want to look into, you're worried about, please give us a call. Let's talk through them for you and find out what financial moves might be open and just give you those options for you to look at. 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or use our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, and hit the gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. We'll ask you a couple of questions there, and then our team will reach out to you. That is all the time we have for us today. Charisse, I'll give you the last word.
If you missed anything from this week, don't forget to go to our podcast. You can find it on your Apple phones. You can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. You can find us anywhere, because we had a great interview with a partner of John Maxwell, and we've talked a lot about taxes and the political season and this new 60-40 strategy. So tune in. You can rewind it and catch up there. And if not, live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Charisse Rivers is an investment advisor representative of Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Charisse Rivers is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency, and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Any client experiences discussed during this show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Charisse Rivers, NPN Insurance License Number 8718011.